It's not just we the people who found our wallets and purses emptied by rising prices and a weaker economy. Today, the Chancellor found that his coffers have been raided too, and quite spectacularly. The austerity blues for ordinary people and the exchequer. The big picture, the budget measures, overall, in here, oversold. The real movement was in this document, the Independent Office for Budget Responsibility's assessment of the economy, and it wasn't pretty. When the OBR forecast economic growth back in November, this is what it expected, fairly steady recovery. Now it sees growth last year as weaker. This year, it's slower too, a little bit weaker next year, and then back on track after that. It's that weakness this year which the opposition has pounced on and reflects the pressure on consumers from higher prices. But, and this is important, there's a permanent hit to output from the weak economy we're seeing right now. And that has big implications for government borrowing. Here's what the OBR was expecting last November. Borrowing falls from £148 billion this year all the way down to £18 billion in 2016. Today, barely 4 months later, that's changed. It thinks this year's deficit will be slightly lower by about £2 billion, but then we borrow more in every year, by £11 billion in each and every year at the end of the Parliament. In fact, we borrow an extra £44 billion under these projections. Partly this is down to inflation, increasing the costs of benefits and interest payments on the national debt, up £5 billion this year alone. But the man who computed the forecast told me it was also down to weaker growth.
Well, the big news since our last forecast in November has been a combination of unexpected weakness in economic activity at the end of last year and higher inflation reflecting oil prices and food prices. And so the combination of those two things, as I say, is pushing up government borrowing over the next few years from the levels that we would have expected at the end of last year.
With the borrowing situation difficult, it was more of a tax shuffle than a tax giveaway today. Here's an example, the rise in personal allowances. The Treasury says this giveaway is worth £1.2 billion by the end of the Parliament. But there's another change in today's budget, a decision to increase all direct tax allowances at a slower rate. This change will raise £1.1 billion by the end of the Parliament. One move paying for the other. So the Treasury helpfully adds up the total impact of all its decisions, giveaways and takeaways, and here's the result. And no, that's not a mistake. It really is zero in each and every year. So if you think that George Osborne's granted you a giveaway, check your other pockets for a takeaway.
It's not a giveaway budget. There are some giveaways in the package. There are also takeaways that are equivalent in size. So overall, Mr Osborne has chosen to leave borrowing essentially where it would be if he just stood up and said, I'm not going to do anything today. The losers are balancing out the winners. So
no overall giveaway in here. And the pressure from the bad numbers in here was for even more of a takeaway to plug that larger borrowing gap. Fingers crossed in the Treasury that growth will save the day and refill the coffers, but by no means are we there yet. John.
Faisal Islam.